Good evening, everyone. We have spent much of this series exploring the architecture of the self, how we build it, how we protect it, and how it can be threatened. Tonight, we turn to a question that is perhaps the most practical of all. How do we change? How do we control our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions to move toward the person we want to become? This is the domain of self-regulation. Self-regulation is the capacity to control our thoughts, feelings, and actions to benefit ourselves or align with social norms. It is what allows us to delay gratification, to persist through difficulty, and to close the gap between who we are and who we wish to be. We will explore two major theories tonight: the control theory of self-regulation, which maps the mechanics of how we adjust our behavior, and regulatory focus theory, which reveals that we are not all pursuing our goals in the same way. Some of us chase ideals, others guard against failure. And the difference matters enormously. Part 1. The thermostat in our minds. The control theory of self-regulation, developed by Charles Carver and Michael Scheier, proposes that self-regulation works through a cognitive feedback loop, much like a thermostat. A thermostat has a set point, a desired temperature. It constantly tests the room against that standard. If the room is too cold, it operates by turning on the heat. It tests again. When the temperature matches the standard, it exits the loop. Our minds, Carver and Scheier argued, work the same way. The loop has 4 steps: test, operate, test, exit. Psychologists call this the TOTE model. Let me show you this through a student named Leo. He has just received a C+ on a history essay. His personal standard based on his aspirations for graduate school is to earn at least a B+ on all major assignments. First, test. Leo compares his actual grade, a C+, against his standard of a B+. He detects a significant discrepancy. He reads his professor's feedback carefully and realizes his argument was vague and lacked specific evidence. His current writing skill does not yet match his standard. Second, operate. Leo takes action. He visits the University Writing Center and schedules 2 appointments. He rewrites the essay, incorporating detailed primary source quotations and sharpening his thesis. He asks a tutor to review his draft before submitting it. Third, test again. After implementing these changes, Leo submits the revised essay. He later receives his new grade, a B+. The professor's comments now praise his clear argument and strong use of evidence. Finally, exit. The discrepancy between his actual performance and his standard has been resolved. Leo exits the loop for this particular assignment, having successfully aligned his output with his goal. He also updates his internal model of how to write a good essay, which will inform future assignments. This is the TOTE loop in action. It is a cycle of self-appraisal and adjustment, and it is the basic engine of human improvement. But self-regulation is not only about behavior. It also governs our emotions, and sometimes the most heroic acts of self-regulation are the ones no one sees. Consider Robert. He has been dating Priya for several months. One morning, she sends a text. "Hey, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with work and family stuff this week. I might be quieter than usual. Nothing's wrong with us, I just need a little space to recharge." Robert's immediate internal reaction, rooted in a past experience of being gradually ghosted, is a surge of panic and insecurity. His mind races. She's pulling away. She's going to leave. What did I do wrong? He feels a desperate urge to text her repeatedly for reassurance. Test. Robert's standard for a healthy relationship includes respecting a partner's need for autonomy and not making his anxiety someone else's problem to manage. He compares his current state, anxious, insecure thoughts, and a compulsion to seek immediate reassurance against that standard. The discrepancy is painful but clear. He recognizes that if he bombards her with texts, he will be violating the very space she requested and potentially pushing her further away. Operate. Robert puts his phone face down and goes for a walk without it. During the walk, he practices cognitive reappraisal. He reminds himself of the evidence. She explicitly said nothing is wrong with us. She communicated her needs clearly and kindly. That's a sign of a healthy relationship, not a failing one. In the past, people didn't give me that courtesy. She is different. He self-soothes by recalling recent moments of closeness she initiated. He accepts that the anxiety is his own historical baggage, not a reflection of Priya's current behavior. Test again. After the walk, Robert checks his emotional state. The panic has subsided into a quieter, more manageable uncertainty. He no longer feels the urgent need to seek reassurance. He thinks, I can give her the space she needs. I trust her. I'll focus on my own work this week. Exit. His state now aligns with his standard of a secure, respectful partner. He sends a single, brief reply. Thanks for letting me know. Take all the space you need. I'm here when you're ready. He exits the loop, having successfully regulated his insecurity without making it his partner's burden. The TOTE model applies as much to our inner emotional lives as to our outer achievements. The standard may be a grade or it may be a value about how to treat someone you love. Process is the same: test, operate, test, exit. Part 2: 2 ways of pursuing goals. But the TOTE model tells us how we regulate. It does not tell us why two people facing the same goal can approach it so differently. This is where regulatory focus theory, developed by Tori Higgins, provides a crucial extension. Higgins proposed that people have two distinct self-regulatory systems for achieving their goals: promotion and prevention. A promotion focus is concerned with attaining ideal selves, our hopes, aspirations, and accomplishments. People in this mode are motivated by gains and focus on moving toward challenges. They are sensitive to the presence or absence of positive outcomes. They use approach strategies to attain goals. Promotion focus is linked to better memory for success-related information, higher creativity, and greater self-reported quality of life. A prevention focus is concerned with fulfilling selves, our duties, obligations, and responsibilities. People in this mode are motivated by avoiding losses and focus on safety and staying out of trouble. They are sensitive to the presence or absence of negative outcomes. They use avoidance strategies to prevent failure. Prevention focus is linked to a focus on failures, reduced creativity, and a more anxious or vigilant mindset. It is also more common in East Asian cultures. Let me bring these two systems to life. Maya and Leo are newlyweds who wanted their honeymoon to reflect their shared ideal of a life filled with spontaneity and discovery. Instead of booking a safe, all-inclusive resort, they bought one-way tickets to a country neither had visited, with only a rough itinerary. They saw the trip as a chance to create unforgettable memories and to start their marriage with a spirit of adventure. They embraced unexpected detours, a local festival, a hike recommended by a stranger, as gains rather than disruptions. When things went wrong, like a missed train, they reframed it as part of the journey. Their promotion focus made the trip feel exciting and meaningful, a celebration of their hopes for a life lived fully. They were guided by their ideal selves and motivated by the potential for positive experiences. Now contrast this with Priya and Samir. They are in their late 40s and have always been cautious with money. Their selves are responsible parents who must ensure their children's education and their own retirement are fully secure. When a friend pitches a high-return but volatile investment opportunity, they listen politely but ultimately decline. Samir says, I'd rather miss out on a big gain than risk losing what we've already saved. Our first duty is to protect the family's future. They choose conservative, guaranteed return investments and maintain a large emergency fund. Their peace of mind comes from knowing they have prevented financial catastrophe. They review their accounts regularly to catch any potential issues early, always scanning for threats rather than dreaming of riches. They operate from a prevention focus, motivated by their duties, using avoidance strategies, and highly sensitive to the possibility of negative outcomes. Neither focus is inherently better. Promotion focus opens the door to creativity and joy but can lead to recklessness. Prevention focus provides security and vigilance but can stifle spontaneity. The healthiest life likely requires the flexibility to draw on both. Part 3. Where do our regulatory focuses come from? These focuses can emerge from childhood experiences. Promotion-focused adults often had childhoods based on the presence or absence of positive responses, praise for good behavior, and the withdrawal of that praise for bad behavior. Prevention-focused adults often had childhoods based on the presence or absence of negative responses, criticism for bad behavior, and relief from that criticism as the highest form of approval. Consider Lena and her older brother Mark. They grew up in the same home but developed strikingly different motivational styles. Lena runs a thriving event planning business, always chasing the next creative idea and motivated by the thrill of pulling off an unforgettable experience. Mark, by contrast, is a risk-averse data analyst who seeks stability and meticulously avoids errors. He is more concerned with keeping his job secure than chasing promotions. Their parents, while well-intentioned, unconsciously reinforced their children differently. Lena, as the younger daughter, was often met with smiles and encouragement when she showed initiative, learning to cook, performing a dance. Her successes were celebrated with genuine delight, and her failures were met with gentle encouragement to try again. She internalized the message that striving brings love and joy. Mark, as the eldest son, was held to a standard of responsibility. He was praised mostly when he avoided mistakes, "Thank you for not getting into trouble like the neighbor's boy," and was sharply rebuked for any lapse in duty. His father once said, "I don't care if you win a prize, I care that you don't shame the family." Mark learned that the absence of criticism was the highest form of approval. The same household produced a promotion-focused sister and a prevention-focused brother because their parents' emotional responses calibrated each child's internal compass differently, Lena's toward ideals and gains, Mark's toward oughts and safety. This does not mean we are trapped by our childhoods. While people have a chronic tendency toward one focus, they can switch. Situational cues can temporarily shift us. Cues about potential gains trigger a promotion focus. Cues about potential losses trigger a prevention focus. Mood also plays a role. Liam is an avid solo traveler with a promotion focus. He seeks out unfamiliar cultures, spontaneous detours, and thrilling experiences. His trips are defined by the pursuit of gains, new friendships, breathtaking views, and personal growth. He rarely thinks about what could go wrong. On a recent trip, however, he was mugged in a foreign city, losing his passport and money. The experience was brief but terrifying. Now, planning his next vacation, he notices a profound internal shift. Even though his chronic tendency is to seek adventure, the memory of the trauma has heightened his sensitivity to potential losses and dangers. He finds himself booking accommodations only in safe neighborhoods with 24-hour security, purchasing comprehensive travel insurance, researching emergency contacts obsessively, and avoiding any itinerary that feels unpredictable. The situational cue of a recent negative experience and the anxious mood it created has switched him into a prevention focus. For this trip, safety and avoiding harm dominate his planning, overriding his usual promotion mindset. The cue of potential danger activated an avoidance-oriented, safety-first approach, even in a domain where he normally seeks gains. Part 4. Regulatory Focus and Creativity. One of the most fascinating implications of regulatory focus theory concerns creativity. For years, the research on mood and creativity produced confusing results. Not all positive moods seem to boost creative thinking. A landmark meta-analysis by Bass and colleagues in 2008 used regulatory focus theory to solve this puzzle. They found that any mood associated with a prevention focus, whether relaxed or anxious, reduced creativity. However, positive moods associated with a promotion focus, like happiness, boosted creativity. This explains why not all positive moods have the same effect. Consider Amara, a graphic designer at a branding agency. On a Monday morning, she arrives at work feeling genuinely happy. She had a wonderful weekend celebrating her sister's engagement, full of laughter, connection, and excitement about the future. Her mood is bright and energized, and she feels a sense of possibility and openness. This happiness is firmly rooted in a promotion focus. She's thinking about aspirations, celebrations, and positive gains. Her team has a brainstorming session for a difficult new client pitch. Amara, riding her happy, promotion-focused mood, is on fire. She throws out wild, unconventional ideas without fear of judgment. She connects disparate concepts, suggests bold color palettes, and sketches a campaign built around the theme of joyful transformation. Her colleagues are stunned by her output. She is not just generating a high volume of ideas, they are genuinely novel and creative. The positive, promotion-focused mood has expanded her cognitive horizons and lowered her inhibition against risky, original thinking. Now let me show you the same principle demonstrated experimentally and then in a real workplace. Friedman and Forster in 2001 used a clever maze task. Participants who helped a cartoon mouse escape a hawk, priming a prevention focus, were subsequently less creative on a task like listing uses for a brick than those who helped a mouse find cheese, priming a promotion focus. The same brain, minutes apart, produced different levels of creativity depending on which regulatory focus had been activated. This plays out vividly in professional life. The creative team at a small design agency had their weekly brainstorming session to develop concepts for a new tourism campaign. Normally, they gathered in a bright room with coffee and an open, playful atmosphere. This week, however, the director began the meeting with an urgent announcement. Before we start, I need to address something serious. Our largest client is reviewing their contract, and if we lose them, we'll have to make significant cuts. I need everyone to go over their project logs and flag any potential delivery risks by the end of the day. We cannot afford a single mistake right now. The team spent the next 30 minutes silently reviewing their files, mentally scanning for errors and imagining the consequences of a lost client. Their focus was entirely on preventing a negative outcome. Immediately afterward, they were asked to pivot to the tourism campaign brainstorm. The session was flat. Ideas were recycled from old projects, and no one ventured anything unconventional. One designer later admitted, "Every time I thought of something bold, I imagined it failing and costing us the client. So I just suggested what felt safe." The following week, the same team met again. This time, the director opened with a different message. "Great news, the client has expanded our contract and wants us to pitch for their international work. They said they chose us because of our fresh thinking. Let's show them what we can really do." Energized by the opportunity for gain and recognition, the team produced a flood of inventive concepts, including a guerrilla marketing stunt that later won an industry award. The only variable that changed was the regulatory focus primed at the start. The budget warning primed a prevention focus, avoiding loss, scanning for threats which carried over and stifled creativity. The expansion news primed a promotion focus, pursuing gain, achieving recognition which unlocked creative risk-taking. What we take with us. Self-regulation is not a single skill but a family of capacities, and understanding its architecture gives us leverage over our own lives. The TOTE loop reminds us that change is a process, not an event. We test, we operate, we test again. The gap between our actual self and our standard is not a failure, it is the signal that starts the engine. Whether you are revising an essay or managing an anxious impulse, the same loop applies. Regulatory focus theory adds a deeper layer. It tells us that how we pursue our goals matters as much as the goals themselves. A promotion focus opens us to creativity, joy, and discovery, but it can leave us unprepared for threats. A prevention focus keeps us safe and responsible, but it can narrow our horizons and drain the color from our endeavors. Neither is the correct way to live. The question is whether we can recognize which focus we are in and whether we can shift when the situation demands it. And for ourselves, the invitation is to become more fluent in both languages. To know when to chase the cheese and when to evade the hawk. To build a life that honors both our ideals and our duties, our hopes and our responsibilities. The thermostat of the self can be set to different temperatures. The art of living well is knowing which setting the moment requires. Thank you.